us at Heritage Day in Trenton for 2016. And joining me right now is a lady of mature years, as I like to call it. Miss Frances Griffith joins us here today. And we're going to go back today. We're going to go down memory lane. We're going to talk about the way it was, the way it is, and what the world's wrong with everything in this world. Now, I've got a question for you. Take me back to the younger days. Were you born here in Jones County?
Yep, I was. I was born in Jones County.
Right here in Jones County. Live on a farm?
Yes, oh yes.
Got a question for you then. What was the best part about living on a farm? Now don't go tell me priming sand lugs, because ain't nobody believe that.
No, because I was putting crap sand bugs, and that was the best part of it. Well, we were a big family, and there were 10 of us, and well, I think we had to entertain ourselves and let me see.
Miss Frances,
just being together, you know.
A big family like I don't know if people in this day and time could relate to a huge family like that many people getting along in the same house, and as you said, you entertain one another.
Yeah.
And were you there? Did you have to do things? And I always like to talk about this because the young people that will watch this in years to come, the things you had to do, because everything you got didn't come on the grocery shelf at the grocery store.
Got it out in the garden.
And the fuel didn't come, you had to go out and chop the wood. Tell me about your garden. How big was your garden? Remember those days?
Oh, we had big gardens because we had a big family, so we had to have a big garden. we raised everything to eat, just about it, though.
You know, when it came time, as they used to say, I've heard this term for many, many years, when it came time for putting up, that was a big time. Everybody got together.
Yep.
And we used to take things to church back in the day. We had too much of something that had a better crop. So like string beans, we'd take them to church and swap them out. Do that?
Well, we never did that.
Right.
Well, back then, my family weren't too much in church, you know. we just didn't live too close to a church, and my parents were not saved at that time, so really they just.
But you know what? Living on a farm with 10 children, it was 7 days a week. You had to work every single day. And when the tobacco started coming in, now I asked this question, this is probably the hardest question you'll get me. Do you remember how many acres of tobacco you had?
Well, about 4 acres, because we had 10 with a mule. That just had to have a little farm, because had a mule, you know, you couldn't do too much.
If you had 5 acres of tobacco back in the day, you were a large tobacco farm.
That's right.
And corn, let's talk about corn. People didn't raise corn to sell, they raised it to feed that mule, right?
They feed the mule, and we carry some to the mill down here in Trenton to have it ground.
That was a big day going to the mill, right?
We come to the mill to have the corn ground so we could have some cornbread to eat.
Now, tell me about going to town. When you go to town on Saturday, or when you would get to go to town, because you had to work all the time, but
yeah.
When you get to go to town, tell me about that.
Well, we'd come to town. We lived in the Franksville, about 5 miles from Trenton, so we'd come to Trenton to shop. That was our town we come to shop in, because one side of Trenton burnt down. There used to be a dime store there and a pool room and all that anyway. And one side of that burned down, but we used to come to Trenton and do our shopping down there. We'd go over to Mr. Cleaver Meadows' and buy stuff there, and then there was one store where it sold clothes. I can't remember who, Mr. Edwards, I think, anyway. And then we'd come to town and we'd get us some ice. We'd go back through Green Lane and get us some ice from an old black man over there, because on Saturday was the only time we had any iced tea. He had a big old thing outside that he put ice in. He bought big things of ice, like an old drink thing, like he used to have it in the drink in the old grocery store. And we'd go out there and buy a piece of ice from him, and on Saturday night, we'd have iced tea, and we'd go to Trenton to get us some fish. So we had fish and iced tea on Saturday night.
But that was a treat. That was a big deal.
Treat, because we didn't have it all day.
Tell me about going to school. Now, how far were you from the schoolhouse?
Well, how far this city in Franksville is from Trenton School, because we come to Trenton. Probably about 5 miles, I guess.
How did you get to school that far away?
Well, we went on a school bus.
They had a school bus, okay.
We had a school bus, and we lived way up in close to the woods, and we had to walk out to the road in the morning to catch the school bus, and you're about freeze on the morning standing out there when it was wintertime. Then we'd go down to the corner, walk down to a lady's house down on the corner and they had a wood stove, and she'd be standing over that wood stove, over that wood heater with a glass of iced tea. We talked about, we come through the Franksville, we discussed that coming on, because she'd be standing there drinking iced tea, and we didn't have it on Saturday night, and she'd be standing there drinking that iced tea.
Miss Francis, I was told that the reason high schools went from the 11th grade and started having 12 grades is because they wanted to keep teenagers in school a little longer to help with employment during the Depression time. When you were going to school, did they have 11 years, 12 years? What did they have?
12 years.
12 years. What happened after you finally, got out of that 12th grade? What'd you do then?
After I got out of the 12th grade, I got married.
You mean like you graduated, you walked down the aisle and graduated, walked up the aisle and was married?
We got out of school in May, graduated in May, and got married in October. So.
How long were you married?
Well, with my first husband, I was married 8.5 years, and for my last husband, I was married 21 years before they died.
How about that? How about that? What do you think's so great about Maysville, Jones County, Pollocksville, Trenton? What's so great about this part of the country? I love it down here. What makes it so great?
I love it. I just love Jones County. I love the people in Jones County.
Gotcha.
I love all these little towns. I love all these little towns.
It's very much a part of America. Were there any, I mentioned the Depression earlier, were there any really hard times? I know we had the tobacco crops a few years. The hail got us and the rain got us, and that was the cash crop. And if people didn't have a good tobacco crop, they had a bad year. Do you recall any years that just seemed to be so tough? But with 10 brothers and sisters, there was always something going on, I would imagine.
Well, there was 8 of us at home at one time because 2 of them got married. They were older.
Right.
But it was hard times anyway. I was born in 31, so it was right after the Depression, and things hadn't got back to normal by then, and it was really hard. It was really hard.
The hardest work I've ever done was priming tobacco. And I don't care who you are, you can say what you want to. I think that's the hardest job there's ever been. Did you have to get out there and get the sand lugs, or were you working at the shelter?
Well, I worked at the shelter when I was young, but when I got grown, when I got married, I worked out there in the sand lugs. I pulled on the sand lugs. I transplanted tobacco on the back of a transplanter. Me and an old black man sit back there and put them things in the ground, and then I broke sand lugs too.
Miss Francis, do you think it's hotter now than it was back then?
Well, I think it's hotter. Billy, I think it gets hotter, but it was hot back then. It was hot back then.
The reason I ask you about the weather, not to be talking about the climate change, but do you remember back in the day when you would get together with friends and neighbors and have a hog kill?
Oh my goodness, yes. That was a big thing when you had a hog killer. Yeah, all the neighbors come when you had hog killers, and when you got through, you paid them with meat.
Right. And I don't think it gets that cold anymore. I really don't.
It don't get as cold as it used to.
No, ma'am.
The mill pond froze over one time, and they said, this is what I was told anyway, from the lady that lived right side of it, Miss West, some of her people, some of his people, Franklin's people, anyway, that the mill pond froze over, and Mr. Walter Rich drove an old Model T on the mill pond, so that was froze.
Every time I think I'm just about through visiting with you, you remind me of something else. You were probably 14 to 15 years old during World War II. Did that affect Jones County, if you remember?
I wasn't that old because, I was about 12, 13. Yeah, I was about 13. Yes, it affected everybody. The war affected everybody because you had to have stamps for everything. You had to have stamps to get sugar. You had to have stamps to get anything you got. And even your clothes, if you tended cotton, you didn't get money, you had to get stamps so you could buy something with cotton.
Those were some tough times.
They were tough times. They were really tough times.
Did you have children?
Do I have children?
Yes, ma'am.
3.
3. Boys, girls?
2 boys and 1 girl.
Do they live here in Jones County?
Two of them live in Jones
Two
County.
of them live in Jones.
One lives in, Lenore.
Well, we'll get back on. So that's just down the road anyway. Real quick before I let you go, when you go back and you look at the days of growing up in Jones County, and I hear people talk about, I remember we used to go get a cold Pepsi. I remember the first time I saw a Hardee's restaurant open up and things of this nature. The first time you ever left Jones County and went somewhere, New York City, New Bern or where? You remember that?
I sure didn't never go to New York City.
And I don't blame you.
Not until recently I've been. I said the first time I went to Jones. Going to Kingston?
Going to
We'd go to Kingston. We'd go to Kingston and shop at Rose's and McClellan's dime store.
But that was like going on, that took all day to get there. That 20 miles is a long way, wasn't it?
It was a long way, it sure was.
I got you. I'm going to give you an opportunity because there are folks all over the world that will see this and why they need to take a trip and come and take a day and just ride around and visit. Get out of their car, sit at the Mill Pond, sit in downtown Trenton, spend some time at Pollocksville and Maysville, and talk about how life is in eastern North Carolina. What would you say to folks coming this way?
I think it's a wonderful place to be. Jones County is, and all these little towns are really nice towns with some real nice people in them. They need to come down and meet them.
When I'm 92 years old, I hope I can sit like this and talk about things the way they were. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Frances Griffin. It's Heritage Day 2016, and joining me right now, a couple of ladies. Now, we're going to have some fun. We might make this into a mini-series. Miss Doris joins us, and Miss Sally joins us. And I'm going to start with Miss Doris. Miss Doris, you lived in Jones County forever?
85 years.
85. Well, that qualifies you as being close. But I get a feeling that you might have slipped out of the county for a little while. What's up with that?
That was when I was first married. I married somebody from West Virginia, and we went back up there and stayed about 3 months, and he said, if I can get a job in North Carolina, we'll move him back.
Gotcha.
So it was him, not me.
What kind of work did he do?
He was with the B&O Railroad up there, but he worked down here for the Department of DOT, Department of Transportation for 45 years,
So you guys were married how long?
56 years.
So you got him back to North Carolina. You just hung on here. We're not going back
That's
to
right,
West
until
Virginia.
he passed away.
I got you. Did you live on the farm? Did you live in town?
I live right across where I was raised, which was a farm.
Okay, now I'm gonna let Miss Sally sit over there, and I'm gonna get her in just a minute. Raised on the farm, brothers and sisters. Do you have any brothers and
Oh,
sisters?
yes, I had 3 sisters and 4 brothers.
When you had a chance to get off that farm, you ready to go?
Yes, I said I was not going to marry a farmer, and I didn't. I had to go to West Virginia to get somebody to.
Well, sometimes you got to go out of town and do a little shopping. You know?
Yeah, that's right.
Miss Sally, how about yourself? Now, I do hope the good Lord will let me, when I'm 90-some years old, to get around and go visit folks. And you girls walk right in here just like you 16 years old this morning. Were you born and raised Jones County?
No, I was born and raised in Onslow County, but I married a Jones County fella, so
Here you are. How long were you married?
29 years to my first one and 34 to the second.
How
I've been
about
married
that?
twice.
How about that? Children?
6, 2 boys and 4 girls.
Did you live on the farm?
Oh yes, I was born and raised in Onslow County on a farm.
Did y'all spend your time on the farm? I mean, were you a family farm?
Yes,
I
yes.
got you. I got to ask you something now that I was talking, I like to ask about hog killings because that was so much a part of life. And you find somebody, over 80 years old, you talk about hog killings. Do y'all remember those days?
That's right.
It was a social event, wasn't it, Miss Allen?
It was a good time.
People come from everywhere. And they usually got paid in meat, or you promised to go help them, do their hogs. Now, Miss Doris, I got to ask you a question. I don't talk about folks, but when I do this, somebody always whispers something in my ear, and I got to ask you this. They tell me that you were famous for cracking cornbread. Anything to that?
Well, I like to cook it.
Cracking it? Who in the world would make cracking cornbread this day and time? You can't get it in a restaurant, I don't think.
I think once in a while at Piggly Wiggly's you can find crackers.
Well, I can get the crackers at the Piggly Wiggly.
But
Yeah,
nobody cooks it.
that's good stuff, though. How about that? It was just so good. Now, we're going to move along here. Miss Sally, you had 2 husbands that have spent any time in the military? Being from
My
Onslow
first
County?
husband,
Marine?
no, Navy.
In the Navy?
He was drafted in the Navy
I got you.
in 42.
42. And farming here, of course, he had to go to war then, I guess. Was he gone to 3 years then?
No, the state made an agreement that when you had 3 children, they would discharge you.
I got you.
So when our 3rd child was born, I was pregnant when they drafted him, and when our 1st girl was born, he was sent home.
Did you raise your children to be farmers, producers, ranchers, or that sort?
Yeah,
You
they're
did.
farmers.
Do they still farm now?
My oldest was,
I got you. I got to ask you, the days of putting in tobacco, how many acres of tobacco do you have? You remember?
my daddy, I said it was so strange, I'm one of 13 children.
Whoa!
I had 9 brothers, and my daddy raised us on 5 acres of tobacco, 5 acres of tobacco.
But that was a lot of tobacco because you had to truck it with a mule, right?
Oh, yeah, we done it everything by hand, pick worms off by hand. And
Do you remember the days of the wood-fired barns when they had to stay up all night?
Oh, yeah.
Miss Doris, you remember that?
I sure do.
Canned tomatoes, you put your tomatoes beside the furnace and in the jars, and that's the way you can, a lot of folks can tomatoes.
You know, I was speaking earlier with a gentleman in the audience here today. We were talking about, you know, during the Depression, folks lived out in the country, lived on farms. They didn't know too much about the Depression. People in the city had a tough time. Millions of people died in this country during the Depression. Do you remember how big your garden was? My grandfather had a garden in 1939 that was an acre worth of garden. Now, he had 10 children. And when you think about it, that might have been big enough, or it might not have been too big. How about your garden? How big was
Yeah,
it?
well, they had a garden.
And when it came time to put up, everything stopped when the garden started coming off.
The yard was fenced in, and the kids played in the yard, and the garden was right across the road from our house.
When you
And
had,
she tended an acre garden with her hoe.
you had a chicken house out there too, smokehouse.
No, it was on the backside, but we had chickens and guineas and cows and hogs and
Sand lugs.
butchered hogs and, oh yeah, sand lugs too.
I think priming sand lugs got to be the hardest job this ever been. Question for you. Do you remember, and I hope I get this right, do you remember when the REA came and dropped the light pole in front of your house and said you're going to get electricity? You remember that?
Oh yeah, I remember the first lights we had.
Do you really? That was a celebration.
Yeah, it
It
was.
was a celebration. Mr. Doris, you remember that?
We had an old land man.
How well,
Until electricity came.
tell me about school. You had 13 brothers and sisters. You could entertain yourself. I mean, with
Yeah, we
13.
had our own ball game. We'd get out and play ball until we got mad. And then Daddy would put us in the garden picking worms off of collars.
Having 9 brothers, I can see where that would be an issue there. Tell me about going to school. I'll start with Miss Doris. Doris, tell me about going to school. Where'd you go to school? Here in
I went at Trenton.
Trenton.
I had to walk about the dirt road up to the pavement 58 for several years until they built a state road.
Was there 12 years at the school when you went?
Yeah.
It was. Okay. Miss Adler, was it 12 for you also?
No, 11.
11.
I went to Richlands, I was okay.
When you finally got out of high school, because I think that's one of the first bridges that you cross going into adulthood is when you graduate. When you got out of high school, Miss Doris, what happened then?
What did I do? I went to visit a friend in West Virginia, and I came back home. And 2 weeks later, this man that I'd met up there and dated him while I was up there came down, and we got married. I knew him for 2 weeks, but I wouldn't have changed him for nothing in the world.
Well, you know, I reckon if you find what you want, there's not a whole lot of reason out there shopping, is
There's
there?
no need to get in there.
I mean, you could have gone and you had to spend a year or two looking for the right man, don't you
I
think?
get that he thought a lot of me because he came down here.
Good, honest Christian man. I got you. How about you, Miss Adler? Got out of high school, 11 grades.
Out of high school, I got married pretty soon after high school.
Well, but that was normal. I mean,
Yeah.
then people back in those days, they never talked about going to college. Just get out of high school, get that high school education. A lot of folks would join the army. They would try to get a public job just to get off of that farm because it was hard work. It was 7 days a week.
It was hard work, all right.
I got you. Tell me about your church life here. I know that in Jones County, the churches have always been the center of things that move, and people talk about church homecomings and things of that nature. And I always like to hear about a church homecoming, dinner on the grounds. There is nothing more southern than dinner on the grounds in Jones County. Who wants to tell me first? How about you, Ms. Doris?
Okay, joined the Methodist Church, Maple Grove United Methodist outside of Trenton, 3 miles south.
Yes, ma'am.
And of course, we closed down a couple of years ago because there wasn't about 7 or 8 going.
Right.
And we merged with Trenton United Methodist, so because we were all on the same charge.
Right.
But I walked to Sunday school every Sunday morning. Sometimes my daddy would take me in the old buggy. I called it not the buggy, but the car. But I've been there all my life.
Do you remember when the snow would come and you couldn't get to school and the snow would stay on the ground for weeks?
Yes, it would, but our group of us would walk to Trenton, and the schoolhouse had steep steps.
Right.
And we'd take a piece of pasteboard and we'd play there. We'd walk all the way to Trenton, that was 3 miles.
Great.
In the snow, and we played on the steps.
How about you, Miss Sal?
Well, I walked to school 3 miles to Catherine's Lake. Our one-room school building was right beside the church, the Baptist church. And we walked to school, and then we'd go back. Mother and Daddy didn't go to church till they got in their 40s.
Right.
And, but we'd walk back and go to church and go to school at the same little one-room pot building.
And when you would get home from school, there was a line of chores that had to be done.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody
Yeah.
had a job.
That's right.
Everybody had a job. Tell me about when you got your first telephone. Telephone put in your house. Ringing on the party line.
I don't even remember our first telephone.
I got you. Mr. Doris, you remember your first telephone?
Yes, I remember when we got the first telephone, my daddy wouldn't pick it up. So my mother and I were gone one day, and I said, we were visiting somebody else that had a telephone. I said, I'm gonna see if Daddy picks it up. There's nobody there, you know. Usually he'll wait for somebody else to do it. So I called home, and he picked it up, and he said, hello. Just like he'd been doing it, but he hadn't picked it up before. And that was a surprise, so that was way back in the day.
Do you ladies remember when somebody delivered or you brought home your first television back in the day so you could watch Slim Short in Carolina? Remember that?
I remember our first TV.
You do? Tell me about that.
Yeah, we lived on Ben Lane's farm in Jones County. Whenever we got our first TV, Carol was 14 and she was our 3rd child. So I well remember that. In fact, that hadn't been too many years ago.
Now, do you remember getting your driver's license? Miss Doris, you got that look like you might have had a heavy foot.
Well, actually, I was 16 and I wanted my license, and my daddy said he was farming, he didn't have time. And so I went home with my girlfriend, Mr. Larkins, and Mr. Larkins, which I'm sure everybody remember, he took me to get my license. And that's how I got it.
So that's been, and do you still have a driver's license?
Yes.
You still drive like you want to?
Yeah.
How about that? How about you, Miss Sal?
I drove until I was 91.
Really?
I have the macular degenerative eye disease, and I got to where I couldn't see, so I quit driving.
Did you get your license when you were 16?
No, I didn't get my license till I was 40. I was their field driver.
I got you.
But whenever gas come along and the gas tobacco beds, they could do it right out in the open field. So then I had to get driving license because I had to drive on the road.
I got you. Well, a couple of things. There's so many things that come to mind because I think about over the years. This country has been, and I'll go back, you mentioned World War II, the Vietnam War, we talked about that, and the changes in this country. The tobacco program going away, the impact that it had on the family farm throughout. I mean, the majority of the farms in this country are still family owned, but the tobacco program going away, and 5 acres of tobacco was a lot of tobacco. It's all you could do in a week.
You got good money for that.
You did, and it was all you could do during the course of a week. What do you say the changes in Jones County are? Farming, industry, things of that nature. What are the biggest changes you've seen?
To me, in the farming industry, because I was born and raised on a farm, and we farm.
Right.
And, there's so many changes. When I first started,
When you quit,
loop tobacco on the stick and
can you imagine somebody 16 years old looping tobacco from sun up to sundown now? They wouldn't do it.
No, sir, that would.
They wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it. I think Taurus works out big. when you didn't have to, and all of a sudden you realize, wait a minute, I don't have to get out here in this garden. I don't have to plant this garden. I don't have to worry about rain. I can run right over down to the Piggly Wiggly and do my grocery shopping. When you finally realize that, and you had to go to town every week to buy your groceries, tell me about that. When you didn't have to put up your food anymore. Remember that? And that'd be what, 40 years ago, maybe? I'm going to ask you a real hard question after this.
Probably so.
I got you. Miss Doris, what about the first microwave oven you ever saw? What do you think of that?
I got it as a present for Christmas. My daughter gave it to me, but I've had about 6 or 7 since then.
Did you look at that thing and say, I'm gonna buy
Yeah, I said it might blow up. I didn't want to use it at first.
it? Yeah, now I got to ask you this. This is where the fun stuff begins. Miss Sally, you got a cell phone?
No.
You don't?
Don't want so.
Don't want one. I got you. I got to ask Miss Doris, you got a cell phone?
Yeah, but it's because my children said I was on the road all the time and I needed one.
I got you. And I look at all those changes. When you only could get one channel on your television, now you get 300. That's changed a lot. Transportation's changed a lot. Look, just, you know how cars have changed. The homes have changed. Medical care has changed. And all your friends are, you know, if you still get to see them at church, that is a good thing. What do you think the biggest change is in your own personal life? You know, is having a cell phone, or is it having your youngest tell you that you got to have a cell phone? What's wrong with that? I raised y'all. You didn't tell me what to do here. What's the deal? Big changes.
In my life.
Yes, ma'am.
There's been a lot.
Just pick out one for these young people that will watch this video many years to come. One of the biggest things I think of is medicine and the medical industry. I can remember when somebody would get the pneumonia and it was, oh, you might as well go ahead and make the funeral arrangements. Remember that? I remember you go to the hospital and have a baby, you'd be up there for a week and a half. Now you go home and come home and cook supper that night. I mean, things of that nature.
That's true.
It is. I mean, it's just changed so much. And people.
And same thing with heart attacks. I had a heart attack when I was 60, and I had to stay in hospital a week.
Right.
CCU 5 days. And now that back home in 3 days, I could not drive for 10 weeks.
I got you.
And now they can go on about their life.
What do you think people, you know, West Virginia, people in West Virginia that may see this on PBS or wherever, what do you think they would want to come to Eastern North Carolina, or come to Jones County? What makes this so special? I absolutely love it here. I've been here for this festival 4 or 5 years. I absolutely love it. And the reason why is because I feel like I'm at a family reunion.
Well, they say people are friendlier down here.
Really?
And they like the climate down here.
Right.
But most of our in-laws are passed away except the young ones now. But we used to have them. Sometimes I wouldn't even get the beds washed before here come another lady when we first got married. And you know how you are when you first married. You really don't know how to cook or anything, but you said, what am I going to do? But anyway, I learned to cook pretty quick.
Miss Sally, looking back over the years and the way things are and the way things have changed, what about people, the general population of Jones County? I was in the parade this morning and I felt like people I see once a year, and it was just like, where you been? It's like Christmas come to town, I guess, so to speak. The people in Jones County have pretty much been just one like a big family.
That's right.
That's true.
I got you.
The churches are really friendly. Your church family down here are a lot friendlier than the ones up north.
I got you. You know, when you talk about, and that's what makes anything, is the amount of people. And here today with Heritage Day, the number of people that come to this event and how big it is. Do you remember, and I'll ask both of you this, being out on the farm and working all the time, do you remember when the fish man would come by? I want to talk about fish man. Look, I want to talk about the fish man because people say there was no such thing as a fish man, but it was the fish man.
Every Friday.
It was amazing. Tell me, I want both of you tell me now Miss Sally with Miss Doris, you just jump in there and tell me. I want folks to know about the fish man coming around.
Well, it just had fish to begin with.
Right.
But the one that came by our house soon had candy bars and all.
Whoa.
And that worked for us children, that was a delight.
Well, you would think with the Pepsi plant being across the river over there, they'd have some cold Pepsi stuck in there too, so. But that was a real treat back in the day.
And had candy bars, and that's what we look forward to.
You know, Miss Sally, how about the fish man coming by? Because you go out, what, 3 miles from school and all? How about the fish man coming by
Oh,
your
yeah,
farm?
yeah, and I used to remember his name, I'm sitting here
I
trying
do
to,
too.
but I can't.
But he was a welcome sight, was he not?
Oh, I know, our children.
I was born in Hookerton, North Carolina. I was a fat baby. I weighed 8 pounds when I was born. My mom would put me up there in that fish scale and weigh me every week when the fish man would come by. I was officially weighed in the fish scale. Go figure. Did I leave out anything with you ladies? We talked about your family. We talked about the school. We talked about the war years. There's just so many things that have gone on, and there are a lot of people out there that'll watch this and say, oh, when I'm in my upper 80s and 90s, I hope I can get out like those girls do. Because y'all walk right in here, you're going to do this festival today and just have a big old time. Did I leave out anything that you'd like to say to the folks of Jones County that may be viewing this 10, 15, 20 years from now? Somebody's going to say, that's my great-great-grandma right there. I didn't know she had a heavy foot when she got her driver's license. Because I'm going to tell everybody you got a bunch of tickets. I'm going to make you do it.
5 generations in my family.
Five generations. And you, Miss Dark?
My generation, just 3.
Just 3.
We have children, children, and grandchildren, and great-grandchildren.
I got you.
She's got great-great-great-grandchildren,
Oh. And once again, you're how old?
85.
85 and 90?
94. I was 94 last Tuesday.
Well, I'm gonna let you girls go because it is ladies' night out here tonight. Y'all go have fun. Joining me right now is a gentleman that I think he's about 35. I don't think he's quite as old as he claims here today. Mr. Fred Hill. Mr. Hill, how old are you, sir?
93.
93. And I wish I had your energy at my age. My gracious. You born and raised here in Jones County?
Yes, sir.
Born and raised right here. How many were in your family when you were born?
How many in the family?
How many brothers and sisters did you
I
have?
have 3 brothers, no, 2 brothers and 3 sisters.
How about that? Born and raised right here. You went to school in Jones County?
Long time.
Lived here all your life. Did you ever go for a little while and go anywhere and come
Well,
back?
yeah, I went to Chester, Pennsylvania, stayed a while.
Got you.
I stayed a while in Greensburg.
I got you. Couldn't wait to get back to Jones County then.
Then I come back to Youngstown.
What kind of work did you do in those years?
Well, mainly farming.
Mainly farming. You know,
I worked different places, but mainly farming.
we talk about the meal pond here in Jones County and how important it was. And money is always, I think money in the farming industry for somebody in their 90s was always, we had fall terms and things of this nature, and money was always a tight situation. We're going to talk about some hog killings and things like that. But tell me your story about getting your corn ground up down at the mill. This is, our young folks will appreciate this.
Well, I farmed all the life.
Yes, sir.
And we raised corn and tobacco and whatever. But we would shell the corn off the cob. We done a toe sack, got a lot of toe sack. Long time ago they had fertilizer in a white bag.
Yes, sir.
And my mom would take and wash that white bag out and use it for bringing corn to the mill. So I drove the mule cart from Pollocksville to the mill up here in Trenton. And they would grind it, take about a quart or cup of corn out per pay. And give you the rest of it back. We had some good cornbread.
But that was a fair trade though, was it not?
Oh, real nice.
Now you got to back up here a little bit. You mentioned good cornbread. I don't think I've ever had any bad cornbread.
That was good cornbread. And I can tell you how she cooked it.
Yeah.
Sometimes she would make crackling bread.
No.
Put that crackling in that cornbread and cook it. It's on something good.
Me and you supposed to talk here about 10 to 15 minutes. You keep talking like that, we're going to have to go find something. I'll tell you, there's nothing like crackling. Just talk about crackling cornbread. Talk about your garden.
Right.
You raised everything you had. You had to put it in. Most everything.
You know, vegetables.
Tell me about the hog operation. Everybody had some hogs that they would do for hog killings.
Yes, sir.
Tell me about the hog killing.
Well, we raise hogs, and certain time of the year, we would kill them, we had what we call a scalding bath.
Yeah.
And hot water in a big old wash pot. And put that hot water in that scalding bath and take your hand and get all that hair off the hog. And then hang them up on a gas, what we call a gas, 2 poles in the ground.
Yes, sir.
And hang them up there and then we take inches out.
Mr. Hill, young people may not understand what I'm about to say, but you didn't throw away a whole lot out of a hog, did
No,
you?
sir.
You
No, sir.
didn't throw away
They did everything.
everything.
No, sir.
Now, a question for you. School, did you go to 11-year school, 12 years?
11 years.
11 years. When you finally got out of school, what happened? What'd you do then?
Well, when I finally got out of school, the first year, I went to A&T, Greensboro, A&T College.
Yes, it's still a great school.
But I did not finish, so I returned back home. My father was on the farm, so I returned back home back on the farm.
Did you work on the farm all your life?
All my life.
First tractor you ever had?
No.
Remember that?
Yeah, I remember the first tractor. I'm trying to think of it. But that is town.
Okay.
Oh, that is town.
But that just
Yeah,
revolutionized.
that is town.
That changed the way you were doing farming. You didn't have to walk behind that mule no more.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't have to feed him up at the end of the day.
That's true, that's true.
How about that? Tell me about how many acres of tobacco you had back in the day. I think everybody had tobacco because that was a gas
They
crop.
would give you a lot, man.
Right.
45 acres. Small farm.
But you know, that was a lot of tobacco when you were putting it in with a mule.
Yeah, well,
That was a lot. And the corn you had the tobacco to sell, but most of the corn you used to feed the mules and everything.
Right.
Did you mess with soybeans and things like that back in the day?
well, a little bit of soybeans, not that much.
Tell me about coming to town.
I mean,
Coming into town, when you finish up your work on Saturday and you had to come to town to shop, where did you go? Did you go to Trenton, Maysville, Pollisville? Where'd you go?
well, mostly at the 10 Mile Port, there's a man at the station is still there, but people are living in it now.
Right.
But, man, there's a station there and he would, yeah, most of the things was he.
Right.
And my daddy knew the man and man knew him, so we go there and take up flour, sugar, whatever we need to have, and we pay at a certain time. That's not too far from 10 Mile Port.
I got
The
you.
station is still there, but somebody living there now.
Tell me about your family. You being married and things like that, children of that nature. Tell me about your own family, your immediate family. Tell me about that.
Well, there was 6 head of us, 3 boys and 3 girls.
Right.
The 2 girls did,
Right.
and 1 girl lived. She's 9.
That's your sister. Now, what about your children?
Well, my children is 3 girls and 1 boy,
Right.
and they all live.
Did they live here in Jones County?
One of them's in Greensboro. I don't know what county it's in Greensboro.
Right. I got you.
One in Creighton County.
Did you ever have any of your children go back to A&T where you went?
One.
One. Great school, great school. Tell me about some tough times. Some tough times. Mentioned earlier when we were talking about we had a bad hailstorm come through here. Hazel came through here. Connie came through here. Tornadoes, hurricanes, and all that. It just really hurts on the tobacco crops. And there wasn't a whole lot of insurance and things like that. It made it tough on a farm and family. Do you remember a year that was really tough?
Yes, sir.
Tell me one.
When Hazel come along, I was turned about 45. And of course, I had borrowed money to run the crop, paper, seeds, or whatever.
Right.
But when Hazel came along, it destroyed everything, tobacco, everything. So I was not able to pay my bill because I had borrowed money to put my fertilizer and pay hands and work on it. So I really wasn't able to pay it.
So, Mr. Hill,
It
this
destroyed all my tobacco.
was straight across the board for North Carolina, and Hazel came in here because they didn't have the technology, they didn't have the TVs and radios, and Hazel just came right through here. How did you survive that year? Because when Hazel came through, it was just about time for the gardens to come off and everything. Tobacco was in the field.
It was really tough. I hardly know how to say I survived. It was really tough. But in the river, where I based,
Yes, sir.
that water was up near the river, but that bridge
Yes, sir.
at that time, you couldn't cross it.
You know, and a lot of people don't understand that farmers like yourself, you literally lived off the land. You didn't pack up and go to the grocery store. They didn't have the programs that they have, the subsidy programs and things of that nature. And you would help folks, and then they would help you. You share hands just to get the crop in.
That's true.
And were you there curing tobacco when you had to do it with wood and stay up all night and do it?
Yes, sir.
Some long days.
Long days and nights. They had a crosscut, so we cut down the trees and put it in a certain length to kill the tobacco.
How do you remember? Because I do not remember this, and I meant to ask earlier. Do you remember how many days it would take to cure out a barn of tobacco back in the day like this? And somebody had to stay with it around the clock.
Well, at the time they were using wood to do it.
Yes, sir.
The wood was going slow, and my dad would sit up right overnight, and then sometimes he was going to go out there, and about 11 o'clock I fall asleep.
Right.
And he come back out there and catch me asleep. So what he would do, he would, put wood back in the furnace. But anyway, we killed tobacco. It took about 5-6 days.
It took about a week to cure out a barn of tobacco. Then you had to take it out.
Yes, sir.
Then you had to grade it out. And then you had to take it. Where did you take your tobacco to sell it? Kiss them.
Well, most of I went to farmer.
I got you.
And from farmer to green.
Uh-huh. You know, as a kid growing up in farm, I've heard of people coming from all over the state to bring their, I was there like 6 or 7 warehouses and seem to bring a little more. People today, young people today that may say this, they do not understand the amount of work from the very first day you bought the seed till you gassed your beds, till you set it out, till you put it in, till you took it out, till you took it to the market. The number of people that would touch a leaf of tobacco before it was ever put into a cigarette. It was a tremendous economic factor for Eastern North Carolina, but for folks like yourself, it was hard work, and a Hurricane Hazel would ruin it all.
I'll tell you something else about that. We never had what they call a transplant.
Yes.
Somebody would take a pole and dig a hole. Somebody else come by and put the plant in a hole. And somebody else come water the plant.
It has to stay with it the whole time. And then while you were doing this, the wife or somebody had to take care of your garden because that's you had to raise your food and look after the hogs and the chickens and all that. Young people today, it would be an incredible shock to them if they had to go back to that wood. I got you. Tell me about your church life, Mr. T. Tell me about it.
Well, I joined church when I was 10 years old.
10 years old.
And I've been in church ever since.
So being a good Christian has been a part of your life. Tell me about your church homecomings back on the day. Dinner on church homecoming. Well, it was something this world wanted.
Oh, it was something. Well, a long time ago, we used to have what they call a picnic.
Right.
And they'd bring food. Well, first they'd have service. And after having the service, we'd have a big eat out. And we had a fence, just a walk fence. With poles on it. What made a table out
Right.
in the yard.
Yes, sir. Very familiar.
Well, the table and me.
Yes, sir. But that was some good stuff. Didn't have singing in the afternoon.
Don't sit down.
No, sir, you don't. Let me ask you this, and I hope you get the terminology right. The first time that the REA dropped an electric pole out in front of your house and you're going to get electricity out there in the country. Remember that? When you're going to get electricity. Electricity is coming, the poles in the yard, we're going to get it. Remember that?
It's kind of hard for me to get that together, but I can say this. When we didn't have no electric, we had a battery radio.
Really?
And it was by battery.
You didn't listen to it every day, though, did you?
Yeah, most.
What, listen for the hog price? I mean, the farm prices or the news?
It run by battery. It run by electric.
I got you.
Battery about that long.
Got you.
In my life. And we used that battery for radio. When the radio was coming, that's what kept the radio going.
I got you. I got you. You've seen a lot in your years. You've seen a lot. You've seen a lot of growth. Take me on a little tour, if you will, of things you've seen. Tell me about, and tell our viewers, things that you've seen that have had such an impact on you. And cars, the changing in cars, the changes in telephone. You got a cell phone?
I got a cell phone.
There you go, see that? I gotta ask you, you got a cell phone? Who'd ever thought that? Look, who'd have thought that in 1945 you'd be having a cell phone? You never thought about that. You got a cell phone, you're a high-tech man. How about that?
And the first car I bought was plumber. One-seated plumber. But they have a back room, a seat back in there, you behind the cab.
A rumble seat like that? Yes, sir.
That's the first car. The next car I bought was a Studebaker. 46 Studebaker.
And that was a car back in the day. That thing was long from here to Popplesville.
Oh, that was a car.
Yeah.
But I had the Studebaker, and a friend of mine bought a Hudson. hustling, big old something like a Cadillac.
It was. You don't hear that name much. It looked like a tank going down the road, didn't it?
That's true. And then that old hustling, man, near close up, I had a big hustling, I had a student, 46 student.
Have you? Do you still drive? Will they let you drive now? Do you drive? Do you still drive?
Oh, I still drive.
You do.
Yes, sir.
Good gracious.
Most anywhere I want to go.
How about that? What would you think? What would you say the biggest changes in Trenton, Jones County, Collinsville, and of course the Mills back up now, people can see. What would you say the biggest change in this county has been? Still a population, what, like 10,000 or so?
Well, I think the population, to my opinion, probably has increased quite a bit.
Right.
And so far as work concerned, people work with machines now most of the day. Back in my day, they worked with hands.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I first started crossing the tobacco was near the base now. It's base now, it was base.
Yes, sir.
But then it was a field at that time.
Yes, sir.
And I was about 10 years old. And we had to crop the leaves from the bottom, put it in a rocket truck. And I was out there with grown men. I'll tell you something that happened one time. It was it was dirty. So what happened, it was been raining a lot, and looked like the truck was gonna fall over. So I went to it and pushed it back up, people fall over.
At 10 years old.
10 years. And one of the men said, well, how did you do that? I said, well, let me see how I put it, but a man's a man regardless of his size.
There you
That's what
go.
I told him.
Well, you ever, did you, with working and all the things that you had to do with work in the course of the day, keep that forward. Did you ever have time to play,
Oh, yes, sir.
like baseball or anything like that?
Well, I played what they call horseshoe.
You like horseshoe? I got you.
Have a style in the ground by putting near that chair a little further. And two of us, we play a horseshoe and shoot it. And shoot it. It rang around sometimes it didn't.
I got you. I've always asked about
And we
people.
played marbles too.
Oh, look, I played marbles. I didn't have no needs in my dungarees here.
And I pulled my fingernails out sometimes.
Let me ask you a question. I'm gonna make you really mad here. Can you imagine what them marbles would be worth today if you held on to them for 90-something years? You could have bought Jones County.
I'm imagine so. And young people now hardly know what a marble is.
Now, I'm going to ask you something personal now, and there going to be some folks out there, they're going to say, John, boy, I can't believe you asked that man that, but I'm going to do it a buzz up. When you go to the doctor, they tell you you're in good health, your blood pressure good and all that stuff. Are you in good health at 94 years old?
Well, he said my health is fair.
Fair. I got you.
I've got a pacemaker, I still got a pacemaker.
I got you.
Yeah, but support blood pressure and whatever is normal.
You know how many folks are going to see this and envy you so much for being that healthy. They're just going to envy you. And I ask you this, young people today, and here again, somebody can say, man, I can't believe you said that. Well, it is what it is. And we're family here. Young people today, I don't think they were the man that you were. I could never have been the man you were and coming up and doing that things that you did in all those years and worked all that hard on the farm. I mean, during the summer, putting in the back of time, about all I could do. I think men in your age, your generation, being the greatest generation, your generation built this country, built this county. What would you say to the young people? You think the young people got what it takes anymore?
Well,
Have a sport.
I would say that's the only what work is.
Right. You know?
Because we didn't have a transplant, we put the plant there, somebody come and water and put it up down the road and all that kind of stuff. Plant corn, I didn't have a corn plant.
And get out there and do it.
Drove it by hand. And then what happened, my daddy knew that the birds would eat that corn up.
Right.
So he would take some tar and mix that corn around the tar.
Uh-huh.
You know, tar, you know.
Yes, I do. Yes, sir.
And, put some sand in it and we dropped the ears of corn. And then the birds couldn't take care of that tar, so the corn come up.
What would you say about the people in Jones County?
Well, they living at a different age from what we did.
When you were coming up, it was like one big family, maybe?
Right, what do you think?
I got you. Have most of your friends been called home? Do you still have any folks your age around?
And sometimes they have hawk in the race hawk.
Right.
And people around the community, some of them would get together and let us kill all.
Swap labor. Swap labor. People watching this video many years to come, what would you tell them to make them want to come to Jones County? Those people in Pennsylvania, what would you say to them? Those people of an A&T, watch this. What would you say to make them want to come down here and visit your home county and what is so great about Jones County? What would you think that you would want them to know about Jones County?
I don't know, it'd be a hard question because so many people left the country, gone to town, New York, California, and they don't want to come back to the country.
I got you.
But I guess they got disgusted the way that the other people live, and they don't want to live that way.
Right.
So they try to go up north or somewhere, you know, and live. And then at the same time, they say they live better. I don't know why.
Well, they don't live better, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why, in my opinion. They don't have cornbread. They don't have collard greens. They don't have boiled potatoes, tater salad, and pork chops and sweet tea. You can't go so long without that before you get off track. That's what I think.
And let me say something else. They don't
Yes.
have sweet potato. We used to plant sweet potato plant, and at a certain time they would plant sweet potato come up with larger, it's a larger. We take cornstalk and leaves from truck pine leaves
Yes.
and make a bed. And bed that sweet potato in there and cover it up. And we have sweet potato all year.
You got some folks out there right now about to starve. They don't even know why. Mr. Hill, I got to share this with you. It has been a true pleasure talking to you today. And there are a lot of people out there that really hope when they are in their mid-90s, as you are, they can still get around. And, you know, I truly believe if you get a chance to sit down and talk with somebody like yourself, you need to have a camera running so you can talk about when the utilities came to the home, when they got the first. Remember the first television you ever saw? Remember the first television you ever saw?
I don't remember what year, but I do remember.
It was something to see, though, wasn't it? Something to see.
Amazing.
And the first time you had a telephone put in your house,
No.
and look, and let me just be fair. First time you had a indoor plumbing, that was something.
We've been out, everything was outdoors.
That's right. A lot of people don't understand that. In the winter time, and there it was. It was terrible. It was terrible.
Everything was outdoors, you had to go outdoors.
Do you think it's hotter now than it did back in the day?
But you know what's funny?
What's that?
We don't go outdoors no more, we go in the house.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Mr. Hill, you have made me laugh here this morning.
We don't go outdoors, we go in the house.
There are people scratching their heads saying, I can't believe people live that way, but that's the way
But
it was.
everybody been outdoors.
It really did. And it was what it was. One final question. Is there any job on this planet, any job that you can think of harder than priming tobacco?
No, I can't tell you that.
And I'll rest my case, and I thank you, sir, for your kindness.
No, it's no harder. You bend down and you know bottom knee.
I couldn't do it.
Back, oh my Lord.
I could, if I could prime tobacco all day, Lord have mercy, give me some of this world.
Tell you what we did when I first started. We had to catch 2 roads. Climb on this road, climb on that road.
2 rows, put it in the back of the truck, let the mule take it to the house, loop it up, put it in the barn, sit up with it all night, and do it till you got it all in
We
the
got
coop.
75 some a day.
And that was big pay.
That was big pay.
Thank you.